Okay, today we have a really interesting job that's definitely not been running true in the slightest. How on earth are we going to fix this? This is what we have to do. Glue it back in with a bit of precision. Just a little bit of light reaming, just removing a little bit of material. That should just go in. So what do we reckon? Okay, today we have a really interesting job. We've kind of featured a problem like this before on the channel, but this sort of takes it to another level. You see, the problem is, the customer came in with the problem with the Giant bikes have with the metal insert coming out, except this time, that metal insert came out with a piece of the carbon frame still attached and the bearing well and truly wedged into it. So we have a bit of a problem. On top of that, the alignment problem is pretty insane as well. Here's the crank that came out of it. Loads and loads of witness marks. It's definitely not been running true in the slightest. Now, I know loads of you in the comments are going to be like, hey, you shouldn't run a 30mm axle and a BB86. Well, until someone comes up with a power meter on a 24mm axle that actually works and at a reasonable price, this is what we have to do. So how on earth are we going to fix this? You see, what's happened before on this, the history is the drive side has already been fixed by another bike shop. So the drive side has had the same problem, and that bike shop just epoxied it back in, for want of a better word. Non-drive side that we're fixing today, all I did was remove the cranks and literally this fell on the floor. You know, this was attached to the crank still, and you know, this was just came out. It didn't require any effort. Now, it's not quite what you call a slip fit, so I can offer this up and it kind of pushes in, but not all the way. Now, what I want to do is glue it back in, but glue it back in with a bit of precision. So I'm going to grind this down a little bit so that it becomes a slip fit. Then we're going to use our Vuduglu from Easy Composites. This is going to be a fantastic glue that doesn't have an awful lot of expansion, that will work with both aluminium and carbon in that situation. I'll show you how that works in a second. We're going to use the old bearings with the cranks installed to get that alignment right, and then we're going to pull those bearings out and we're going to have to ream to 40.98. Need to do that because this side is too tight. So we take our 40.95 gauge, and this is a mega tight fit. We need to do just a little bit of light reaming. Now, I think that has happened because when you just use epoxy without doing any sort of surface preparation, that epoxy can expand a little bit and then undersize this. So I think that's the order of operations. Cool. So once we are smooth and fitting, I need to give this a really good clean with IPA, and that way we're going to have a really good surface preparation for this glue. Just going to pop this bearing in first. We're just going to use this as an alignment tool really. We're going to throw this away and fit a better one. And let's get some gloves on because this glue is pretty powerful stuff. So just have a quick remind myself of the instructions. Remove cap, dispense a small amount of adhesive to ensure a uniform mix. Apply adhesive and assembled clamp as required. When finished. So the cure time of this is actually very, very fast, but we're going to give it almost all day. See, I did think about pulling this bearing out now, but it'd actually be pretty tricky because there's not much to pull on. I think it'll be easier when it's actually in the frame, but obviously I need to make sure there's a really strong bond before I try and remove that bearing. So what I've done is made sure I put a line of glue all around the leading edge, so as I push this in, the glue is just going to push back with it. I'm going to try and line up all these broken bits. Get that in. So this should be a relatively easy fit. Yes, perfect. I wanted that easy fit because now we can get the cranks in and use that to align. Okay, let's leave that and let that glue cure. I'll see you in a few hours. Okay, update then. So everything's been glued in, it's been cured for a day. I've knocked out both of the bearings, and just running them through my fingers, we can feel there's like a little bit of roughness in those, so we are going to want to replace those. But there is also a little bit of undersizing going on. So we've got our little 40.95, and I showed you this before. We knew this one was a little bit undersized. It stops there. On the one that we've just done, this is really tight. That's not going to go in at all. So there has been some expansion happen. There's also just been a tiny little bit of glue overspill as well, which I just want to tidy up with the reaming tool. So what we've done, we've set up our reamer with the 40.98 reamer and the facing tool, so we can do both at the same time with everything centered. So I'm going to do the good side first and then come back to do the side that we know is the worst side. So it's really worth just taking your time and getting everything lined up. I know there's some chat about laying the bike sort of horizontally so that we can go and do this vertically, but the bike's such an awkward shape with all the bits and pieces on it, it's actually more awkward. So I think I actually prefer doing it like this when I know it's bolted down and secure and I can walk around it and check. So a little bit of cutting fluid, and this should just wind its way in under the tension of the spring, just removing a little bit of material, adding a little bit more tension as we go. So what I'm discovering, I don't think we're going to be able to go deep enough with this to get to the facing tool as well. So we'll do the facing separately. We're just going to take this to that 40.98 size. Cool. That's the reaming done. I need to find another solution for coming back here and doing the facing. All we're trying to do is just remove that tiny bit of glue. This is just some IPA just to clean off all the oil, because we're going to need to use retaining compound. Get this back to a nice clean surface. So on this side, you can actually see this crack here. That's the bit that we've sanded down and is now filled with the glue. So there's a gap there, but I say that this is probably going to be stronger than the original ever was, because that must have been from a void. Yep, lovely and smooth face, correct size, all good. Okay, reinstalling the bearings these. We're using a Praxis M30, which means 30mm on the drive side and a 28mm, I think it is, on the non-drive side. Either way, they're smaller, you don't want to get them mixed up. Now, that's perfectly clean. We need to make sure this is perfectly clean as well before we put any retaining compound in. The top tip, when you're deciding between whether you should use grease or retaining compound, a good clue is whether you can see a little ridge. Yeah, if you see a ridge like this, it could sometimes be in the center. That ridge has been put there to like absorb any of the excess retaining compound, because remember, the retaining compound expands to fill a gap. So you want something to go there. Like Hambini's talked about this on his channel before. He puts a line down the center of his. If you don't see that, either assume that you use grease, or if it's a plastic shell, you just don't use anything, you just go in completely naked. So this is going to need cleaning, so we got that a good surface for it to bond to. And then we're going to also need a set of drifts. Now it's quite hard to find a Praxis drift, so what we've done is we've sort of stacked our drifts. So we've got an internal and an external one, so we can make a drift up. We've got about 1 million different bearing presses in the building, but this Whittles manufacturing one's going to do the job for us today. Let's just get that offered up. And what I'm going to do here is use a 6902 on the inside, and then use a standard 30mm on the outside, so essentially making up a drift to do the job for us. And today we're going to be using Loctite 641, which is a medium strength retainer with about a 10-minute cure time. Remember, trying to get it on the edge that's about to be pushed in, so it actually spreads backwards. So this is the sort of the yellowy colour one that you can tell. The highest strength ones tend to be green. Okay. That noise you can hear, I know it sounds really, really scary, but it's actually the anaerobic process of the retaining compound setting. Something I learned quite early on when I was so scared about what those noises were doing. If you ever really get confused about like what Loctite to use, the Loctite website is fantastic. It's like a web chat forum, and they actually chat to someone and they'll recommend compounds for you. So if you're really any sort of doubt about what the size of the gap is you need to fill, just get on there and ask. And you can always buy small bottles from almost anywhere now. The important thing is to not lose your drift, but also there could be the chance of retaining compound that's just spilled over and then just might get in the way. So go back and clean up any retaining compound. And we'll give that 10 minutes to cure before we fit the crankset. Time to refit the cranks. So little top tip. If you're using this sort of glue, there is a danger that the glue can sort of overspill and go onto here. Now I'd put some grease on here to try and prevent that happening, but there's just a couple of spots where the glue had come on, so I just had to scrape that off, which is why you can see those couple of marks. Hasn't affected the crank at all, it's just a tiny little bit of glue scraped off, but you need to make sure this is completely clean. So I've just kind of gone through and deburred all of this and checked it's all okay. The Praxis, you get a whole load of kit in here for fitting, so you have 5, a 4, a 3, a 2 and a 1 spacer to help you set the chain line, etc. We're going to need the 2mm spacer today, so all that is redundant. And then on the 28mm side, we have that wave washer and the cap like that. We need to get some grease on here.
Oh no way, are you applying that with the Mapdec CycleWorks grease applicator set that you can buy on mapdeccycleworks.com?
Yes, Jake, I am.
Wow, £31, what a bargain.
£31 including grease. 2mm spacer. So this is the trick. If that is a good alignment, that should just go in, like, you shouldn't need to force it, you shouldn't need to tap it, it should just go in as cleanly as that. So that is nearly always a good sign. I'm going to try and get this chain out of the way so I can show you the spin test. That is going to need a little bit of grease in here, and these little syringes here are awesome for just greasing in between. Don't need a lot, just need to get them down in there without big globs of grease, and this is a great way of doing it. And this is torque to 56 Newton meters. So what do we reckon? Oh yeah, dreams. So these Praxis bottom brackets have got quite a thick viscous grease in them, and also it's a contact seal as well, so you're never going to get like a Hambini seal because there's inherent friction there, but that is beautifully smooth. Happy with that, job well done. I think we have one happy customer here. If you like this video, please get down in the comments, let us know if there's anything you think we could do better, refine our technique. Again, I'm all ears. This is quite new work. I don't know of many bike shops doing this sort of repair work on bottom brackets. So yeah, just keep adding to the comments and let's just learn together. All right, thanks for watching. Take it easy.